welcome to another episode of Spotlight on CS Ops. We have with us one of the heroes in CS Ops. His name is Keith Mathis.
No, he's talking about you, Keith, not me. He's talking about you,
All right, fine. I'll
for
allow
sure.
Hi,
it.
Keith. Welcome to the show. How are
Thanks,
you doing?
John. I'm well. I'm happy and honored to be here. I appreciate it, and always good to see both of your smiling faces.
That's awesome. Do you want to get
Good to see
started?
you.
Sure. I mean, if we're starting off and talking about you know, my origin story or how I ended up in CS Ops, I'll go quickly and traverse through some of the laborious stuff early, and then get right to the nitty gritty. But the one thing I would want to preface is that again, I'm grateful you guys asked me to join. Um, I come from an education background. My parents are both New York City school teachers. So growing up, if you imagine how painful it is getting your homework checked by just a parent that isn't a teacher, imagine having two of them in the house. So, bad grades were shunned upon. So that was sort of my motivation. But again, professionally, I'm happy. I'm always about learning and advancing, and even every day in the workplace, I say my number one skill is feigning ignorance, and it's just you can't be afraid of what you don't know. So that's the first thing I want to start off is like ask a question. I'm that guy that like they have a seminar and it's like, does anyone have any questions? And of course, I'm raising my hand, or I just want to know more or contribute. So that's just a little preface that there. But as a 48-year-old miser in the professional world right now, I started off as a young sort of like gamer. I saw an open computer on my friend's desk, and I started dialing into bulletin boards and playing games, and I just got fascinated by technology. And early on in my career, I took greatly to like networking and infrastructure, and then eventually databases, and then all of that type of stuff, to the point where I ended up consulting for myself about for 10 years, where I did anything from website design, infrastructure, IT management, project management, and stuff like that. And then as I progressed and became more of an adult, I could no longer consult, and I'm not going to rhyme anymore. But I don't want to sound like adult, but no. But I needed to get a full-time job because I was, moving on in my life and needed some security. And when I did that, I skipped around. I was a logistics engineer and a database administrator. And then I quickly moved into thinking, well, I'm getting older in my 30s. And everyone tells me, you did the tech thing, you did that super hands-on, servers and coding and deployments and all that stuff. But what are you going to do as you get older? And I never knew how to answer that question. And then I started looking around, and I ended up getting a job at Pearson Education. And with them, I was a project manager, and they threw me into a couple of challenges with some teams, and we became a Scrum Master and a Senior Scrum Master. And then there was an inflection point in my career at Pearson where it was like, well, are you going to keep going this path? And then someone just said, hey, Keith, you've got this technical background, you're process oriented, you've done this and organized that. We have about 35 people whose lives depend on this tool called Gainsight. And would you be willing to go get trained on it and become our admin? And I was like,
It
that sounds
is.
like an interesting challenge. And I did a little research. And earlier on in my career, I was doing call center design. I worked for a company called eLoyalty, which is all about CSMs, or called CSRs. They were call center representatives, CCR, but anyway, back in the day. And I said, you know what, this resonates with me a little bit. It's customer support, but it's different. It's customer success. It's got a different angle to it, I think, and it felt like refreshed. So Pearson sent me down to St. Louis. I got some training. I met a whole bunch of people in support, took the classes, and like within a couple of days, I had built a small version of Gainsight and Microsoft Access, just to like conceptualize like what they were building out and the relationship of the data and the model and stuff like that. There was no data designer back then, so I couldn't do anything like that.
Which year
And
would have this been roughly? Like, was this
we'll have to go on LinkedIn and check.
2013, 2014?
That sounds about the right era. And
Yeah.
Pearson was on the Salesforce version of Gainsight with the JBara
Uh-huh.
packages and all that other good fun
Remember
stuff.
that.
we had all the challenges with the Salesforce objects and then this and then the other stuff. And it was kind of an experience. And I spent a good, I think, year as their Gainsight admin. And there were a lot of data challenges, I'll say, with our usage data and the level of granularity. 35 people just cranking on the system and just generating reports and dashboards and just getting your hands on the rules and scorecards and just really figuring that out. And then through one of our other colleagues, the Dark Knight, Mr. Jeff, we were talking, and I was like, I'm thinking about, maybe, seeing if there's anything else out there. And Jeff was like, listen, there's this opportunity. He's like, I don't want to build something from scratch. He's like, but Rapid7 has, they need an admin. And I immediately got in touch with them. And within a couple of weeks, we had an offer, we did it, and it was a really amazing thing. And for me, it was a point to say, hey, can I really do this from scratch? Can I build something? Can I layer in like some CS ops stuff? And for me, it was an opportunity not only to grow as an admin, but also professionally, because I had my boss and he was leading me the way to all these different contacts. But it was working with the senior operations folks that really gave me this, I think, extra insight into what's helped me keep my career going in customer success, and not just as an admin, but sort of expanding that sort of portfolio of what an admin can grow into.
Yeah.
So I'll
You
pause.
you said at one point, you're like, well, I'm always the one who raises his hand when the questions come up. So congratulations. You're in a spot where we're going to ask you questions. But about that, I've known you for a while. I've been blessed to run a lot of circles with you. But one thing that always impresses me about you is this growth mindset. This, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to learn. I'm here to figure something out and grow. Where does that come from? And can you learn it? Can you learn a growth mindset?
I don't That's a great question. I mean, my f I'll say my father had a binder. This is dating myself as well when people don't have digital anything. He had a binder of brain teasers and all sorts of different things to keep your brain going. It's a binder, 3 ring, I hope,
You
traffic
bet.
keep,
I'm sorry.
but
Tell us your story.
I've always been I think a curious person, and like it's just enabled me to explore different hobbies and different things, but I think I've never been bashful about not knowing something. I think some people find that as a weakness, but I find it as sort of like, I view it as more of a strength. Like if you're willing to get
Mhm.
vulnerable enough to say, hey, like I'm looking at my Slack from work right now, and someone just says, hey, do CI people do this? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know what CI stands for. I'm like, can you please tell me? Like, just I don't know. I think I myself personally respect a hungry mind and someone that wants to learn. It makes my endorphins and all those lights trigger my brain. And as soon as I meet those people, it's like I will do everything for you. Now, I know that in my career, when I first was deciding between being a developer or a networking and infrastructure person, I despised the developer person I was working with. And then when I went to the person that was doing networking, I said to him, I looked him dead in the eye in a Manhattan office, like IT office, and I said, "Look," I said, "I got the rest of my life to make money." I was like, "I don't give a crap what you pay me, but teach me as much as you can." And he was just floored that I would say that. And he just started printing stuff out and whatever, whatever, whatever. And I want to sort of pay that forward. So like I love learning, I love sharing, and I'm hoping, I don't know, it's communicative in some ways, but like I don't know. I mean, just don't be afraid to not know something. Like it's just one of those things. Like get comfortable being uncomfortable asking questions if you are.
I love that advice, and I love that you used an acronym as an example because I mean, who of us hasn't? No matter how long you are somewhere, someone invents an acronym or says something, and you're like, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm just not with you on this." And I know I sometimes have a tendency to just play it off like, "Oh yeah, I totally know what you're talking about," and then later I get burned. So this is kind of inspiring, Keith.
I've been there. The wrong acronym with the wrong interpretation can be pretty funny and also painful, but it happens.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
That's you've given us like an awesome exposition into your journey and kind of how you grew up into the field. Was there anything that you would say, like, among all the learnings, like, is there anything that you learned along the way that you wish you had maybe known at that crux of that moment when you were deciding, oh, should I go be the Gainsight admin or should I just keep doing my technology world? Is there anything that you wish you had known long before you even got into this field?
that's a good question. I think you have to acknowledge who you are as a professional. And
Mm,
It has to do with, I know it sounds kind of corny and cheesy, and I'll take credit for that if I have to. But someone a while ago says, like, the way you conduct yourself and the way you plan how you want to expand and, like, go into your career is just you're branding yourself, and like what brand do you want to represent? Like when someone thinks, Matt, we think, funny, intelligent, good Gainsight administrator, obviously bow tie, but like, all that stuff. And like you bring people together and you're a social guy. And Jean, we know how intense and like, how much you've accomplished in this industry as well. So there's just things like how do you associate, like how do you want to be associated? Not like a memoriam or like whatever else, but like when someone says I'm going to work with this person, it's not going to be like, ah, crap, like, whatever. Like it's going to be like, all right, this is going to be a good thing, like a brand. What I wish I knew earlier was like more of like career pathing. And I think I was trying to allude to that and then I sidebarred a little bit, but like what type of professional do you want to be as you advance in your career? And those are like, internal questions you have with your boss, but it should be an internal dialogue with yourself. Like what makes your endorphins pop? What makes those, things trigger in your head? Like to me, delivering like simple functionality or whatever to CSMs and them go, holy crap, I didn't know we could do this. Like that's the stuff that like really wakes me up in the morning. Or when you build a simple data model and you solve for a problem that's been existing for years, and the people, well, I didn't know we could do that with Gainsight, or I didn't know we could do that in general. And it's like, there you go. Like I've had a couple of those aha moments already at GitLab, which is fantastic. And it, for me, that's like addictive. So it's like you get to learn, you get to work with people. And I don't know if I've coined this phrase or not, or I stole it from someone, so I apologize. But like with all the COVID crap and the remote working, I like to consider myself like a social worker, not like a literal social worker, but someone that like I learn and I get to interact with people more. And those types of relationships where you can have a human aspect, you can have a professional aspect, you can actually have that robotic aspect of give Keith task get done, task gets questions, all other good stuff. And I sound like a caveman instead of a computer, but that's okay. Um, so yeah, I think determining who you want to brand yourself as with your career path as you progress, like think about it internally outside of the constructs of what your company offers, but what you want to do. And there's a little quick anecdote I'll share and then I'll let you ask some questions because I'm talking too much. But um, several, I'm not going to say where and when, but there have been several recent college graduates I've worked with and other folks of different stages in their career that I've mentored and worked with at, I guess I'm giving it away, but like at companies I've worked for. And I've said to them directly, like, listen, you're young or you're like, you have a point in your career. Like, if you want to learn this stuff and you're eager and like it's going to contribute to the current workspace, and perhaps this helps you grow and like flourish in the future, I'm not going to be disappointed if something happens. I want to see you grow. And if you can't grow in your current position, there's no reason any boss should ever stifle learning and growth and education, whether it's internal or external. And that's just something I also feel pretty strongly about. So I'll be quiet for a second if you want.
I love that. That's absolutely amazing. That's definitely part of my mantra. I'm sure it's part of Matthew's as well because we spend so much time like giving back to the community, trying to help coach and enable, and it's never about like you have to work for me or else I'm never going to talk to you again. Like there's so much more. And you touched on it earlier, like pay it forward. I think that's such a great mantra as well for this whole space, and the fact that we do this all in the realms of customer success where everyone is super empathetic, everyone's super considerate, and something like pay it forward just makes complete sense. So absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think the community that we've all contributed to, like the Slack world, has been amazing. And it's just one of those like we're remote, but and we're Gainsight admins. Like, how isolated can you feel? And then we opened up the community, and it was more like we got operations folks in there, we got Rev, we all sorts of stuff in growth. And I think that's nothing to be ashamed about. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And I don't know how many people we're up to, but like every time I look at it, I'm in shock. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just great that we have. And then, some people, I don't know if you just saw this, but someone just posted that they made an AI, chat GPT out of our Slack channel. And
That's awesome. I didn't see that, but
I
I'll have
didn't
to
see
check
that
it
either.
out.
it's just
Okay.
bonkers. And it's like, well, they might need permission, or who knows, but like, it's pretty interesting. And like, that's flattering as well to everyone that contributes in there and is a part of it. It's just great, and I'm happy, like, to be included and considered, someone worth talking to in this arena, but, like, yeah, I mean, paying it forward, doing the right thing and just growth, and it's just better for all of us. And I've always enjoyed what I do for the most part.
I've always been amazed. I would be challenged to think of a situation where I've been networking in customer success or customer success operations where I ran into somebody who's like, "Well, I don't know if I want to give all my secrets away," or "Oh, you work at a competitor of mine," or so therefore I'm going to get a little tight-lipped. Like I am just floored in the best possible way of how much of a community there is. What would you say, Keith, to somebody who's like maybe just like peeking the door open, like, "Oh my god, there's 2,000 people in here or more, and I've only been, I built my first rule and I've been at this a month, and then there's others who have been at this for a long time." Like, what would you say to folks who are just sort of sneaking in, not sneaking in, who are just arriving?
Don't be shy. And again, like I think this conversation, what's going on in the community and everything is just proof positive that like the more the merrier. Come join us, share your mind, like share your questions. I know Nick says this a lot, but being professionally vulnerable. Like I think that's a thing. I think people, and I don't want to sound corny or like whatever, but like don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to ask a question. There's a lot of us out there that have the same questions. This you get this from your teachers at school or college, whenever you're out there. If you have a question that you're thinking about, there's a good chance there's 10 other people with the same one. They just are not confident enough or not willing to do it. And to me, I'm not like a savior of the people. I know that just sounds weird to say, but like I just want to know things. Like I just do. I mean, there's times where obviously I don't like, and it's not 100% always on kind of thing. But like when it comes to sharing and learning, I know that people many times in my career have done a lot for me. And acknowledging that customer success was sort of like a newer industry when I first got introduced to it. Not I haven't been in as long as John, so I'll say I don't have that tenure, but respect to you. But I will say that I saw potential in this industry, and Gainsight was a big part of it, and the fact that I got exposure to it, and it's just stick with it. Like, decide if you're data oriented, decide if you're process oriented, decide if you love agile methodology to layer into work management, decide what
Yeah.
things like you're interested in. And I know in a short like TLDR, I started off like super technical, super hands on, super all this other stuff. But then as I became an admin and started to expand and working with more of the senior leadership, operations folks, data engineering, data management councils, and like whatever, that really like helped me network internally to I said my customer, but like my company. But it's
Mhm.
also like the customer mindset. Like I've been a consultant a lot of my life, and I always consider myself a consultant. Like even the people on my team, like I'm here to help you. I'm here to like whatever. There was a guy at Pearson who was about to retire, and I got to work with him for 6 months. And literally every time I had a meeting with him, it was like, "Hey Keith, how's it going? How can I help you? What can I help you with today?" It wasn't like, "What's the agenda?" It's like, "What the hell you want? Like, what's the work? Like, what's that?" It was just always that open mindedness and like that whatever. And that's something I always like respected and wanted to emulate. So it's not just me, it's all these other people that help me.
Super cool. Well, speaking of, I guess, like figure out who you want to be and stuff. Like, so as you look at the CS ops world, there is so many different avenues. Like, I've worked with analysts, I've worked with systems people like yourself, I've worked with, workflow people, I've worked with program managers, and there's just kind of like, a full range of different roles. Like in your career, it seems like, and tell me if I get this wrong or not, but like you focus primarily on like the technical side of the applications and the tooling. Sounds like you're getting a bit more involved in workflows and like some of the strategy probably. What
Yes.
was that an easy entry for you, do you think? Like was systems kind of an easier path for you? Because I'm sure you must have picked it up fairly quickly and were able to add
Um,
value fairly quickly, I'd assume, given your
yeah,
background.
I mean, being a scrum master and having to do like work management and get agile stuff under my belt and like understanding developing processes, that just rang true to me. Layering in Gainsight and CS ops and then like data and like Salesforce and all that stuff just was like it just made sense for me because that's the stuff I get involved in. So like I get hired as a senior analyst and Gainsight admin, but I'm immediately looking to get on the data advocacy panel, the data management council, like all that stuff that's forming and then happening at the same time. And when I was at Rapid 7, I was part of the DMC, and like I want to get involved. I want because if you think about it, if you look at your company's tech stack, and if you're using if you have customer success, especially if you have Gainsight, you need someone that has that vision of what the tool is supposed to do, what it can't do, and then what the future may hold with it. And as you admin more, you get more familiar with the asks are. And then if you're curious enough, you have to layer in the higher level user stories and what's the higher level impact. And you're not just building a scorecard measure, you're building something that's helping to determine a dimension of an analysis of a segment somewhere. So it's really like, it's kind of cool to see it all come together. But to your point, what does what do you as the listener or the individual want to do with your career? Are you into process efficiencies? Are you into the technical tooling of a process that supports something? And just you try it sometimes, and again, I hate to sound like a fanboy, but like as a Gainsight admin, you can sit there and either limit yourself to just being a super technical, like I can build rules, I can build data models, I can build journeys like left, right, and center. That's amazing. But the step up from that is saying, how does that layer into the business? How does that impact things? What value am I driving by doing these things? And then consulting with folks. And the interesting thing when I joined GitLab is that my boss says, I'm empowering you to suggest change because you've done this a bunch of times and you know what the definition of good looks like. That's true to some degree where like, yeah, I got battle wounds. I've seen, I think we all have them at this point. But the definition of good or great changes. It's amorphic. It's like as you're working, it's going, oh, I learned that. Oh, I learned that, especially as a new hire. So again, it's just it's your propensity not to churn, but your propensity to learn. How about that for a corny?
Well, here come the
That's
rhymes
awesome.
again. Here come the rhymes again.
So maybe that is a factor of like, a career path is like, what is your propensity to learn your PTL? And like, figure that out. Like if you love to master a single aspect of a tool or a team or a process, there's no shame in that. There's people that, wield Gainsight like you wouldn't believe. But to me, it's just like layering Gainsight and then discussing like, am I going to be more architecture and data centric? Am I going to be more process and all the other type of stuff? And it's just again, it's constantly learning too. Like I said, social worker. At Rapid7, I got to work with the sentiment team. I got to work with the CSMs directly. I got to work with the TAMs. I mean, and I got to work with them and deliver tangible things that made their lives easier. And to me, that's just the most, like, I guess a paycheck is nice, but like, that's just rewarding for like a work perspective. Like
Mhm.
people actually like, this is a great report or this is a great whatever. So I'll pause because I rambled again. Sorry.
Yeah, to me, it's the impact, right? I mean, it's not. It's so much like what our organizational siblings do over in customer success, and they're doing the same thing. But we're taking tasks and delivering recurring impact. We just happen to do it with an internal group of CS folks who generally are happy to see us come because they're so busy on the front lines. They're
Mhm.
often excited to see some folks like us come along. So.
It's good stuff. Not the cavalry, and I don't have anything to rhyme with that either. So I don't know, but
Well, if there's ever a poet laureate of CS Ops, who I'm gonna nominate.
nice, nice. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been an absolute fantastic conversation. I mean, we could easily go on for hours. Being some of the oldest OGs in CS Ops here, I think at this table. But
Right.
thanks for joining the show, Keith. I really appreciate having you on and exploring your journey with us here today. So
Yeah, I think thank you again for having me. I'm flattered and honored to be considered for this, and there's got to be a camera turned around on you guys so we can actually, if it hasn't been done already, get your guys background and origin stories too, because it wouldn't be a full picture if we didn't get that too. So
All right, and we have the guest host. We'll work on it.
yes, I'm okay with that. I will host
All right,
you guys and turn the cameras around. But
all
thank
right. We have our first suggestion, John, in the inbox.
that's
you.
awesome. Thank you so much again, Keith.
All
Have a
right,
great day.
you too. Take care.